All right. So this is my first time leading the discussion. So do we first just introduce everybody that's here? Okay.
Yes.
So make sure I get this right. We have Finley, Larissa, Lacey, and tell me how to say your name. Anacleto? No.
Correct. Yeah, you
Really?
did it right.
Wow. Surprised myself. And myself, Lori. Who am I missing? Is that it?
Jody's not coming.
Okay. So there are 5 of us today. And this is the discussion on evaluating persuasive advocacy. And it's based on the readings and the videos that we watched. And so we'll just go ahead and get started with the first question, which is, what did you learn about persuasive writing? Persuasive speaking from Taylor Molly's speech. So I don't know if anybody wants to take the lead on that.
Yes, I can start.
Okay.
So one of the things that I learned about persuasive speaking is the importance of speaking with conviction. It was kind of like a funny 2 minutes video clip. And when we stand up to give a speech or make a presentation, we have to speak with conviction, because if we don't have confidence in ourselves or in our own words, why should our audience have confidence in us? If we don't believe in the message that we are conveying, how can we hope to move others to action? Almost impossible. So in order to speak with conviction, we have to know our material. It's very important for us to prepare before we present, or before you're going to argue, starting arguing with someone. We have to know what we're talking about, and we have to believe in the right of our message. It's important also. And we have to prepare, to take the risk that people might not agree with us. We have to be mentally prepared for that, because if you're not, when the situation arrives that contradicts our thoughts or our belief, we might get stuck or frustrated, or maybe our tone of voice might, might be increased. It might be an argument, So it's important for us to be mentally prepared that people might disagree with us. So that's pretty much what I have for that.
That's, and I think I would just add to that, that's excellent. I noticed that from the speeches that we watched, that you could tell that they had practiced and practiced and practiced, and they were ready. And I really like what you pointed out there, that you have to not only be prepared yourself, but you need to be prepared for what other people are going to be confronting you with. And to me, that would be the biggest challenge, because I'm just so non-confrontational. I would almost do anything to avoid a confrontation, and that doesn't always serve you well when you're trying to be persuasive in your ideas. So excellent. Anybody would like to add to that?
Yeah. So this morning, we had a presentation for my other class, and I don't remember. It's like the history of early education. That's what it is, the class. And so we have presentations and stuff, and I was just applying what we learned this week to the presentations that were given. And some of the girls, you could tell that they were like, well, like, you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean? And the whole time I was like, oh, wow, like, I bet I do that all the time too, and I want to stop doing that, because then tell the impact that it has on me as an audience. And so I thought that was really important too, how Anacleto was saying, that it's important to be confident in what you're doing and do your research and do your studies and practice. And yeah, like, it's not just gonna be a natural thing once you read it once or do research on it once. It has to be kind of like a lifelong passion that you develop for it. And I feel like this class has helped me a lot to kind of light up that fire within me to want to learn more about these things that do attack families and be more prepared for when I start my own family and stuff. So I thought that was really cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, those points touched on it. I made in my notes about us needing to be invested in our own personal opinions. So that's kind of just rewording what Clarissa just said. And then I like the last little thing that he talked about with us not only needing to say what we believe, but also speaking with authority, because so many of us miss that. And yeah, I think it's kind of just the other thing I put on there was to be who I am and don't try to act like I'm something that I'm not. And then I just put like no bandwagoning. So those were just a couple of things that I posted, but I think everybody kind of already touched on them for this one.
Yeah, I thought it was so surprising that I hadn't realized that I do the same things as what he was pointing out. I think sometimes, unless we listen to ourselves, and I think maybe recording yourself would be really a good thing to do, because just our intonation says so much about our conviction. And I thought, I don't even realize what I'm doing until he did it in a humorous way, but it really hit home to me that I do those same things all the time. So I think sometimes just listening to ourselves.
The one thing that I liked about his little speech thing was that he was in his presentation, he was very personable. Like, you wanted to listen to what he was saying. You were like, oh yeah, you're right, we do that. And so I think even though you may be speaking to an audience that may not 100% agree with you, I think it's really important to be relatable, to use terms and words that, not like, you know what I mean? Yeah, okay, yeah, let's move on. But like, speak with authority, but speak in a way that your audience is gonna wanna think about what you're saying, instead of saying, oh my gosh, this is just making me so mad. Because you don't want the people that are listening to your speech or to your statement to think, oh, I just can't wait till I can say my piece about this. You want them to think, oh, you're right, they have a really good point there, let's discuss this topic. And so I think it's important to also have that relatable factor, so people are constantly like, well, let me put on my armor so we can start battle here for a second, but that we have, like, that we are personable enough that people are going to be like, oh no, let's have a discussion about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like that, because even right now, how Lacey was saying about the bandwagon people, how they don't do their part of the research, and they're just there with their own opinion because they heard someone else say it, even though they haven't done their own research, but they feel strongly about it, even though they haven't invested the time into it. So I feel like it's kind of our job to help those people view the opposing side of things. Like, say I am pro gay marriage and I'm listening to someone who's not pro gay marriage. I don't want to, like you said, like, be, okay, I'm going to just wait till they're done so that I can say my part. Like, you want to really get them to think and get them to start evaluating their own opinions and be like, okay, well, I understand now where they're coming from. Let's see how we can come to a median, kind of a thing, and not just have it be a fight between the two sides.
I think those are excellent ideas, and just being aware of what's being said, but trying to not get defensive in our minds. We kind of need to be listening to what is being said and be objective about it. I think it's really important. So the second question is and we may have already touched on this, but what principles of effective speeching from writing and speaking persuasively did you see in the speech that was given?
Hello.
Any thoughts on that?
I think I saw that was the rhetoric, technique they use, which is the ability to reason, create image or to move by speaking, you know. So the other one was the description, pretty much is the make it personal, is storytelling. So those are the two techniques or methods that they use, you know, pretty much because whatever the topic or audience respond the best when speakers personalize their communication. So take every opportunity to put a face on the facts of your presentation. You know, people like to hear about other people's experiences. These are natural as a human being. So those are the two, you know, like I said earlier, two methods, techniques they use is rhetoric and description.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I kind of did them both together. I said both the speakers were confident and passionate about their stance, but the first video contained a lot of scriptures, and it contains specific like facts and arguments to back up the stance. However, it was heavy with religion and seemed as a turnoff to people. And the second video was storytelling, so then I just put that he used the 3 stories of self, us, and now. And I said both talks were short and to the point, and both stances and points were clear and made quickly at the beginning of the talk. But yeah, as Anacleto said, the first one was kind of just, I think I wrote in one of the other questions to it, what was less effective. I said the first speech wasn't personable. It was firm, demanding, and condemning. And the second speech contained a personal story, and it didn't contain like any studies or statistics. So in one way, it was kind of like biased and one-sided to like one personal success story. Like if you were kind of on the fence about it, I felt like the question that said, which one would you go for? I would go for that guy because he seemed more personable and relatable. But at the same time, when I was like, and that's the problem, is that people just pick quickly. They don't really take in everything. Once I stepped back and was like, okay, let me really analyze both of these here. Neither one of them really contained any like actual studies or statistical facts. So this was one guy's success story. And we've got to remember that just because, you know, somebody has a success story or it was a good outcome for him and his family, and he was very successful and, you know, and stuff, that's the exception and not the rule.
Yeah, along with that, I feel like the first speech was really in attack mode, and a lot of people don't respond very well to the attack, like nobody does. But yeah, like I felt he was just calling people sinners and saying that God does not favor sinners and this and that. That's not a way to capture your audience. That's just gonna make it so that they don't want to listen to you. And even though he was trying to bring a gospel approach, like we've been told many times now that doesn't always work, which is sad, but it doesn't always work because a lot of people just consider that to be very biased and not modern. So even when I was first listening to this, I was doing laundry, so I just had it like on the speaker and I wasn't really paying attention to what he was saying. But I paid attention to one part, and I was like, am I listening to the right thing? What is this? And I checked and I was like, oh, wow, this is someone who's actually trying to advocate for this, and he's not doing a really good job. But with the second one, I kind of even felt like, oh, he touched me, like that was good. But then I did have to be like, okay, that's not, like you were saying, Lacey, that's just one person, and it's not what we are for. So it's just super interesting how when you word things a certain way, it works better than other things. And we just have to be careful about that. So
yeah, I was almost annoyed watching the first speech. Like the principles as far as like gay marriage are there as far as we believe as a religion, but I felt like it was, and I feel like that's where we as like advocates for children and family really we kind of have a disadvantage there, because a lot of the advocates for marriage and family, like that are you know, not for same-sex marriage and stuff. It's all based on religious things, and it comes off as like a doom and gloom preacher of like Sodom and Gomorrah and woe is them, you know, they're going to hell or whatever. And I feel like that puts us at a huge disadvantage because we're seen as the bad guys now. I mean, like, how annoying is it to you when somebody comes up, you're doing this wrong and you're going to go to hell for that? Like, that's so annoying to come off that way. And when we speak that way, advocating for families, people aren't going to want to listen to us. And yeah, you almost wanted to agree with the second one because he had a personal story. He related to the audience. He used facts from his life or whatever, and he, you know, was engaging them. And you, like, if you saw like the audience off to the side, the lady next to him was like, oh yeah, like just nodding her head along the whole time. And but so there is such a difference, no matter what the subject matter is, there is such a difference in the delivery, and we need to be careful of that. But just because we do believe in these things, because of religious things, and because it's, we need to be careful to not use those types of tactics, like scare tactics, because those are just so, people just get annoyed by them, and that's, so I can see the one side where people think we're so prejudiced against certain people because of that kind of speech that goes into when we're defending the families and stuff. And so anyway, I just think that we need to be very careful in the words that we use, but we need to be, he did have a lot of confidence, which I'll give him props for that. Confidence is good, but the words that he used were very strong and very heavy, and a lot of people can either go, oh, he's crazy, and so then nobody takes him seriously, or they, oh my gosh, he's a jerk, and now I'm just gonna destroy him in this debate because he was such a jerk. And so anyway, that's my 2 cents. I just feel like that was it was really hard to kind of listen to that one.
Yeah, I think you have really kind of nailed it. If you watch the people in the background, I thought that was so interesting. In fact, I found myself drawn to people's reactions almost more than what was being said. And to me, I realized that you really don't want to come across as being superior or having, you know, more knowledge than the person that you're talking to. You need to relate to them as an equal. Like, let me just share with you what I have discovered, or, and that, you know, even though the second didn't bring in the statistics or anything, it was so interesting to see him relate to the people in the audience and the Speaker of the House, that he was just saying, you know, if I were your son, wouldn't you, I'm sure you would be proud of me. And I thought that was so interesting to be able to address somebody like you're just speaking to them one-on-one, instead of, okay, I happen to know more than you, so let me just divulge what I know and speak down to you. So just the approach that they took to their audience, I thought was really interesting, and that I learned a lot from that. You can just speak to people on their level and share your experience and not have to speak down to somebody, because the minute you start coming across as a sermon, like you guys, like Finley was pointing out, you really lose your audience. So I thought that was really interesting. I could see myself more, you know, and if you were on the fence, which way would you go? And so even though we have strong convictions, it's easy to see that we would be drawn into somebody who makes it so personable and has had those experiences. So any other thoughts on that?
I just think that the truth hurts. Like, it hurts to hear someone telling you what you don't want to hear. And I feel like that would be the case with most of these people, because they, at least I would assume that in the home that they grew up, they were told, at least like the older generation, at least, they would be told like, oh, that's not right. You don't like boys if you're a boy. You don't like girls if you're a girl. So they kind of already went against everything they were taught at an age. And if for you to be telling them again, like, this is wrong and stuff, that's not the way that you should do it. Like, I wouldn't even go up to my husband and start telling him all of his truths. Like, I would warm up to it and be like, okay, I know this is what you're not doing right, okay? So you wouldn't just treat someone like that unless you do think that they're your superior, or you're superior to them, which is not what we want to do. So I thought that was a good point that we all discussed.
Mhm. All right. Let's see. I think we've actually discussed most of what was less effective about each speech. And we've talked about where you would be if you were, or how you would feel if you were on the fence listening to each of these. So let's see, what do we still need to cover? From what principles of effective writing from writing and speaking persuasively did you see in both articles? So
None of us could get the second article to open.
yeah, you know what? I actually had to just Google I just cut and pasted it and then Googled it and was able to find that rather
I
than
tried
trying
to
to
do that. It
open
wouldn't open. I got the.
it.
Did anybody else? We were kind of talking a little bit about it before class, but I don't think anybody else was able to.
Yeah, every time I would pull it up, it was like article not found. The
Yeah, I
404
tried
number.
it like in Chrome, Firefox, copy and pasted it. Oh yeah, and they just said you got like a video or something, but you weren't sure if it was the same.
Yes, but it wasn't like the animation video, 2 minutes. Talking about I think it's about.
Well, I think I think that one's like their main video that they have on the website. The porn is a drug or something.
Yes.
But this one seemed really interesting. The how porn taught my ex-boyfriend to rape. Like, I really wanted to read that. That seemed really interesting to me. But I couldn't find it.
I kind of just wrote like quickly on the first one. I just said that it had facts and used history, and so I'm assuming here, because I didn't read the second article, that it would probably kind of be like the first two videos there. Like the federal one seemed kind of like, for me, it seemed kind of boring and a little bit long, even though it wasn't very long, just because it was kind of like history and this didn't work, but it still had like some facts. So I was really looking forward to reading the other one to see if it kind of had this spin like with the second guy in the video. And even though it's a topic that most people would like cringe at, with the title, I was interested to see the spin of how they were gonna write that. So yeah, it's kind of hard to answer the last few ones, but I don't know which one was less effective because we can read one of them. So
Well, maybe I'll share with you, because I was able to read what she, the article, the second one, and it was all her personal experience with dating somebody that was addicted to pornography, and how it went from being, she was trying to help him overcome his addiction, and so he had told her, he said, if you will keep dating me, then I'll be sure to be strong enough not to view pornography anymore. But what happened was he had been lying to her the whole time and had been viewing rape pornography, which I didn't even know there were things like that out there. I guess I'm pretty naive, but it's all about, I guess, the shock factor. It has to be progressively shocking if you're addicted to pornography. And so he was watching these violent websites, and she noticed, even though he said he wasn't viewing it anymore, that he was getting progressively more aggressive with her, to the point where he was, and it had progressed to the point where somebody walked in on them and he was choking her. And before that, she had become really bruised. Even though they didn't have intercourse, he was very, very physical with her. And she kept justifying the fact that you know, she was helping him not to view pornography, and I think it was because it was so gradual that she just kind of became numb to it. And people would notice that she was bruised and hurt, and her dad was a police officer, and even though she'd been trained to know what it would be, how to protect victims from violence, she didn't view herself as a victim. So the approach that and finally she was able to break off from the relationship, but it just showed how desensitized she had become and how addicted, and that this isn't just, you know, this is the kind of pornography I view, but that people become, get into it deeper and deeper. And so she just shared a very personal, and it was all personal. She didn't share any statistics. She just, this was my experience, and to me, it was so effective. It just gave me the chills that this boyfriend that she had was not even, unless it was violent and somebody was in pain, it would have no effect on him at all. It had to be, somebody had to be hurting and crying, and before he had any satisfaction in the relationship. So it was quite shocking to me, and I guess I was naive about the things that had taken place, but the fact that she related an experience to me was very effective. Even though she didn't have the statistics, it definitely got your attention. So I don't know if that helps at all, but it was all about her personal experience. So
I think that's a very important stance or a very important way to talk about your stance is in a very personal way. Obviously, we haven't, as marriage and family studies students, we haven't experienced everything that we advocate for, and that can be really hard when, you know, people really respond to that personal factor when you speak, when somebody speaks. And so, but I do think it's important that we take something that has affected our lives directly, indirectly, whatever, and talk about that, because that, I think, to most people respond to that kind of personal story, and they're like, wow, this has affected this girl so much, more than they would go, oh wow, look at these statistics. These statistics have no faces though. But this girl did have a face, or did have a character that you could feel as you read the article. And so, even though I didn't get a chance to read it, it's just, there is so much power in being very personal about your speech without being without doom and gloom, but in a very real way discuss the real dangers or the real risks involved with a lot of the things that we're advocating for. And so I think it is really important that if we do have something personal, that we do try to figure out how we can talk about that and get to a point where we can start being more confident.
I actually have something that happened yesterday as I was reading everything. Well, it started off with the videos that we had to watch, and since I'm like logged in with my YouTube too, then when the video finishes, you know how some suggestions pop up after. Some of the suggestions were Mormon messages on people who have come out as gay, and I was really interested, because I haven't seen a Mormon message about actual members who have their stories. So I went on, and there was this beautiful story about a woman who had always like been struggling with it when she was growing up, but she always just kind of pushed it because she was like, no, it's wrong, can't do that. She served a mission, and while she was on the mission, she discovered that she really had an attraction towards women. And when she got back from the mission, she started seeking help. She went to a therapist. And so it was just like this whole story. And I went down to the comments while I was listening to her, and so many people who I assume were LDS were saying, wow, I needed this so much because I have been struggling with this. Oh, I needed this. I struggle with the same thing. I'm a member and I've been scared to tell my parents or something. So it just proves to me how much that personable or like that relation that you can establish with someone who you don't even know, who might be in a completely different side of the world, but that is going through that same thing you're going through, like that's going to help them. That's going to be something that they go towards for help. And I feel like it's the same way with statistics and facts, because obviously if you're like suffering medically or something, you're going to go to the stats. So like, let's see how many people have succeeded with this medicine, or how many people have succeeded with this one, which one should I take? Like you're going to go towards the facts with those people or with that kind of situation. But when it's something, I feel like when it's more of a moral issue or something of the heart, then I feel like it is more important to have that relation heart to heart established rather than head to head. So that's another important thing that I thought of too.
I agree, and that's a really hard thing that we're up against when people tell, you know, personal stories like that. And like with the one gentleman that shared his, you know, he didn't have really any, you know, statistics or anything to back it up. I often think, you know, a couple of weeks ago when I shared about my kids being fatherless and how all the statistics of studies of things that they're, you know, could be potentially prone to are higher for them, and how we have, you know, how it makes me want to try harder for them to not be a statistic. But, you know, we have to remember that. And I think that when people share their stories, like the gentleman did, saying, hey, you know, my parents, you know, relationship didn't affect me. That does happen to some people. And so while I would love to be a success story for people, and I would love to connect to people, you know, who have gone through the trials that I'm going through with my family, I really wish more people would remember that that's generally not the case, and that, you know, while I want to help people, and this is the field that I want to go into, I would also like to prevent. And I think that's a big thing that people skip over, is prevention. And when we look at the statistics and studies, I think that's what often gets overlooked. And so as successful as, you know, that gentleman was with his life, it's just not what the statistics and facts generally come out as. And so while some people will be successful, you know, many won't be. And so it's important to look, you know, deeper, or, you know, past just, you know, the right now. Because a big thing, especially in Marcy Barlow's video, is talking about the future and the children. And so I often wonder what's going to happen in the next generation or two or three. It's not just, you know, we get so caught up with the right now, my life right now. But what about, you know, 20, 30, 40 years? There's so much that comes later that we don't know the effects of until later. So I guess in a way it's like fighting or doing your stance, but also projecting your stance to projecting to the future.
So, Lacey, I have a question for you, and I hope it's not too personal. If it is, don't feel like you have to answer.
Also,
so little backstory. I have a family member who has been divorced a couple of times now, and she raised her kids without a husband, without their dad around. But she's a very, like, she's almost like, well, I didn't need him. I can do this on my own, you know, which she can, but, you know, and I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be offensive, but like you can see like the parts in her children's life where they needed their dad. But luckily my husband was able to step in and help there. And I'm sure you have people like that too. But do you feel like you're more on the side of, yes, I can do this on my own, I don't need a man? Or do you feel like you're more on the side of, this would be so much better if I had their dad in the picture, or their dad was here helping me? Or yeah, anyway, so that's my question. Do you have a certain stance about that, or do you really feel like?
I think probably, definitely before I joined the church, because this all happened before I joined, I was like, I'm not getting married again. I'm not like, any of that stuff. And part of me, yeah, because we live in a society that's like, you can be a woman, you can be independent, and I have the help of my mom and stepdad. So I'm very, very fortunate that my children get their grandpa on a daily basis. And so they have a positive male role model in their life. But I do see some of the effects of my children from not having their father around. And it breaks my heart because it's not fair. It's not right. And as much as people say that they don't need, one particular sex, mother or father, it's so not true. I mean, I see it more with my son too, just the testosterone, the males are different and they need that. And so it's actually interesting because I'm talking with his teacher and we're going to place him with a male teacher for first grade because I want him to have that like male like type role model. And so it is harder. I'm grateful that I am strong enough to do it on my own. Do I want to do it on my own? No. Would I like to get married? Yes. Am I going to settle? No. So it's kind of one of those things where you take the good and the bad. I try to do the best I can. There's many days I feel like I fail. I worry all the time about how my children are going to turn out. I have to really remind myself that it's not all my doing too. There was another person involved. They made a choice, and there's consequences that come from that action. And unfortunately, my children are going to be affected by that consequence, and they had no say in it. And so it's just one of those things where I just have to do the best that I can and expose them to as many good figures as I can, and just roll with the punches when they come. It is a struggle. I see those statistics all the time, especially doing this degree, about how they're going to be more prone to maybe being violent or being sexually active, or we qualify and live under the poverty level for the income that we have. But I'm lucky that I live with my family, so I'm not technically homeless, but on paper they say you can claim that. So I do worry. It is hard, and I see how society, especially with feminists, say you don't need a man, you can do it yourself. But really it does. It takes a whole family unit, and when one person in sex is missing from the picture, it really can be devastating. And so while I hope in the future that I am a success story and that I'm not a statistic and that I help other families be successful too, prevention is huge. I would like to teach other families how to get out of it and how to teach their children to prevent themselves from entering into a situation like that. That's my biggest goal for my children, is to not make the same mistakes that I made and to be better, which is what most parents want for their children anyways, to be better and more successful than what we are. So I hope that kind of answers it. It's kind of a little bit of both, but that's, yeah.
No, I think that's great. Thank you for answering. I'm sorry, it was kind of a real personal question about that, but I think it's incredible that you can because not a lot of people can see both sides. Do you know what I mean? And that's part of persuasive speaking. That's part of persuasive advocacy, is being able to see both sides, but standing for one, or being able to say, yes, I did it, but it was hard and it's not preferred, or whatever. And you talked about prevention. Like, I think that's such a cool thing that you can now help other people. Like, I'm not saying like, oh yeah, happy that you went through all that, but like, it's a cool thing that you can be able to do that. You can be able to help other people through what you've been through, and I think that's the huge part of advocacy is being able to take lemons and make lemonade. And anyway, I just really appreciate you sharing that story. Sorry, it was super personal, but I thought it was kind of pertinent to what we were talking about.
No, that's cool, because that's why I want to. I often have people that are like, you're a convert, you converted when you were later, you went through all this stuff. So sometimes I feel like I'm like a loner, you know, because there's not a lot of people, but that's the way that like the church is going. There's more people that are converting, you know, there's more, you know, converts as opposed to people being born under the covenant. And so we need people like me, and I'm not putting myself on a pedestal thinking I'm all great or high and mighty, but you know, I feel like people, you know, they've come to me and they're like, yeah, I would really like you to talk to somebody I know, or it's just really interesting how like you haven't fallen away and you've experienced all this stuff. Like, I'm not old, but I feel like I've lived a lot of life already. So I feel like people want to ask me questions sometimes because like I wasn't born and raised in the church, and like I went through a lot of stuff before I joined, and so I feel like they're like, oh, she's got like a different perspective, or she's actually been through it. And so I hope that I can be that success story. But like you said, yeah, it is not fun. It is very hard. And yeah, if I could help somebody not have to go through what I did, that would be the best option ever. And so I think as advocates, that's what we're all trying to go for. You know, we're not just speaking about something, you know, just to speak about it. We care about it because there's good reason behind what we're advocating for. You know, it's not just something that we're saying to say. It's because we know that, you know, there's harmful effects if you go the other way.
Yes. I was touched by your story, Lexi, because I went through pretty much similar situation because I'm a single dad and I have a custody. But the difference is that I have custody of my son. He's a 6 years old now. But the difference is that when uh, went through divorce and all these things, and I was done with my marriage and family status certificate to BYU Idaho. I had a little bit of knowledge how to solve these things, so that was very helpful. And the first thing that came in my mind was not my own interest or interest of the mother, but the well-being of the child. So even the stipulation that was through the court we had, you know, the party stipulation, it says she has to visit, you know, has a visit like every other week. But I said, this is not, I'm not gonna let judge decide what's best for my son. So I say, if your mom want to see you on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, whatever, you can go see, you know, because I knew it's important for him to have his mother in his life. So I never follow stipulation. I would follow if she didn't agree with something. I would follow strict stipulation, but I never follow stipulation. I say, you know, it says every other week you can go sleep over. If you want to sleep over Tuesday, there's no school on Wednesday. Go ahead and sleep over. You know, because I knew that it's important. And also the research and studies that found that both parts, the mother and father, are very important, in the nourishing, not nourishing the kid, not just the mother, the father also, the physical presence, the engagement, the playing. This all will help the child develop a better cognitive, physical, social, domain. It's very important. So I just wanted to share that with you.
No, that's awesome that you guys have a good, setup. I always love to hear stories of when parents can actually parent and be civil to each other and understand that even though they're not together anymore, that there's a child involved and what's in the best interest of the child. It's unfortunate that so many people have to go to court and have things court ordered because they want to be selfish and just use the kid as children as a bargaining chip for things that they want, and they don't have their children's best interests, at heart, or parents that, keep their children from the other, parent and stuff. So it's always nice. I wish more people would understand. And again, it's getting people to look at the statistics and facts of, here's studies that have been done when parents have, withheld their children or things like that. And it's not good. The results are not, they're damaging to the children's well-being. And it's getting people to see that and to kind of wake up to that. And hopefully, again, it's preventing future families that go through a divorce, as that's tough on everybody. And so it's making that transition, if it's going to happen as best as possible.
Could I just add something here? I was married for 25 years in a relationship that turned abusive, and I was in a leadership position in the church, and I was told and I realized, our leaders are just human and they're doing the best they can, and I didn't hold anything against them, but I was told to not divulge what I was going through, to keep it to myself and not tell anybody, and just keep acting like everything was fine. And so I did that for several years, and then just realized that, my health was in jeopardy, and my children as well. And I just think if I would have been wise, I would have gone maybe to another leader or, a stake president or something, and just said, how can I take this experience and share what I've learned with other people? Because sometimes we're told not to do that. And I think with whatever experience that we've been given, and my children, I've seen them suffer also, and it breaks my heart also, anybody that's been through that. But even our leaders are saying, okay, there's going to be situations that you find that you're in that is not your fault, it's not within your control, or whatever the situation is. And we have to take our experiences, and this is kind of what the gospel teaches, take your experiences and use them to help other people. And I remember sitting in a meeting going, oh my goodness, these single women are in pain, and I'd never realized that before. And so whatever situation, and we've all been in them, it may not be divorce, but it may be something else. We've all been in situations where we can take what we've learned and either help prevent things from happening or help others heal. And so even though we have the statistics that maybe show the gravity of the situation, it all is personal to people. The problem is that it's a personal issue, and it affects people and it affects children. So, I think we need to the church teaches that we need to take our experiences and do the best we can and rely on each other, and children will be compensated. We've been promised that, whatever you've gone through, if you do your best, your children will, I forget the scripture, maybe you guys know it, but it's that everything will be made just, and we need to remember that. So I really appreciate all of you sharing your experiences, because I think in advocacy, we have to be willing to share what we've been through, even if it hurts, because it may help somebody else. So anyways, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, this has been really enlightening to me. It's so cool how these things happen, because I've been thinking a lot about how just how perfect Heavenly Father's plan is, basically. Like, everything is just good, and we get to meet each other for a reason, and I think that's really cool. Another of the things that I was thinking about just now is how, Lori, you said that with the article about the Fight the New Drug, how the girl kind of just shrugged it off because it was just added on by degrees. And I feel like the world right now is just doing exactly that. It's just shrugging itself off because everything is being added degree upon degree upon degree. And it's going really bad because right now, even people that are in really high positions, that they have a loud voice. Like, for example, before the meeting, I was going through Instagram, and I was looking at Emma Watson's Instagram. She's Belle from Beauty and the Beast. But I I was looking, and she's like a really strong woman. She is like an ambassador for the UN with women. She's a feminist, and she's just like super strong and stuff. And so a lot of people look up to her, and I look up to her too because she's very scholarly and she's very educated. She's not the typical celebrity that she's like, look at me, look at me. She's very polite and classy. So, but I was looking through her thing, and I'm like, even though she's such a great person, like the things that she stands for are not the things that I stand for. But since she is in that like super high figure, and everybody who is in that top shelf basically and kind of spreads their word is spreading the stuff that we're trying to advocate against. And so it is kind of getting harder and harder for us to do our job, but we just have to keep strong, and that's why we have groups like this that we can empower each other and learn off of each other and look at things in a different way that maybe we never thought of before. So I think that's really special and something that Heavenly Father has offered us with.
Well, I actually think we are close to being out of time, but I think we have had a really effective discussion, and I appreciate everybody being willing to share experiences and thoughts, even though they're personal, because in my mind, that's how we grow, and that's how we become more effective, just by understanding people's situations and knowing the reality of what they're facing. So I really appreciate each one of you. So unless anybody else has something to add, I think we can wrap up. Okay. All right. Well, I thank you. Thanks to everybody. And
I'm gonna summarize.
yes.
All right. So the last 2 minutes, we have to summarize this one. Okay. So we began our meeting by discussing persuasive advocacy, and each element had the opportunity to evaluate the persuasive speech by analyzing the two video clips against the same-sex marriage and for sex marriage. Our ideas were pretty much unanimous in terms of the effectiveness of persuasion after we watched the persuasive speech video. From the video clip advocacy number 1, which was against same-sex marriage. Now, if you are not a religion person, that that talk could be ineffective, for the simple fact he did not present any fact or data beside the scripture ones. On the video advocacy 2, for the same-sex marriage, the use his own personal story, no fact or data to sustain that children can be better off if they are raised by same-sex couple. Jack Walsh, the young guy, that same-sex couples are not any different than other human beings because he was born and raised in a same-sex couple home, and he had a very normal life as any child that was raised in heterosexual couples. We briefly discussed persuasive writing sense. Since most of us were able to open the link, it seems that narrative and storytelling is very effective when we are trying to present our points. And to have a better result, it's important to combine the storytelling and facts or data to present our points. We emphasize the importance of being confident, speak with authority, and know the materials and that we present, and we read to face disagreement. Another thing we touched base was the persuasive approach that you take. It's crucial, and it can direct impact or influence other individual. And at the end of our discussion, we share some personal stories and experience that we can use to prevent and advocate for families and children. That's all.
Good job.
Good job. Thank you. That's never an easy task. You did great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and thanks for initiating the meeting. So we'll just plan on next week.
All right, I'll stop the
All right.
broadcast.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.